So much for listening to this episode of Earrings Off. We want to invite you to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. You can find us on Facebook at Earrings Off Podcast and on Instagram at The Earrings Off Podcast.
Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome. We're so grateful you're here with us at Earrings Off. What happens when life hands you not just one lemon, but an entire basket all at once? Today we're joined by D.K. Kang, an author, wellness advocate, and lifelong learner who helps people build strength physically, mentally, and spiritually through discipline and daily action. DK shares his deeply personal journey of walking alongside his wife through breast cancer, losing his job at the worst possible moment, and discovering what he calls gratitude in the fire. We talk about choosing purpose over why me, leaning into faith and community, and how gratitude doesn't erase pain, but can help you survive it. If you're in a season that feels heavy, or simply want to be better equipped for whatever life may bring, this conversation offers strength, perspective, and hope. Enjoy. Hello, today we have with us D.K. Kang. D.K., welcome to Earrings Off.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. It's a great honor.
Yes, thank you. We're going to jump right into the questions here. D.K., you and your family have been through quite a bit, right? You guys have dealt with infertility, job loss, cancer, and you've had to be a caregiver, all within just a few years. So talk to us a little bit about what kept you from breaking when life kept trying to break you.
Yeah, so for me, so a little bit about me, my story. So my wife and I, we've been dealing with infertility for about 10 years. So about
Wow.
2000 to 2020. My wife ended up having endometriosis. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a disease that's where the uterus, the inner wall basically starts forming on the outer wall. It's heavy bleeding. It's very painful. I'm not going to get into details on that. But my wife had a complicated surgery back in 2020, and then she actually had a total hysterectomy. And the endometriosis actually spread to other parts of her organ, like her intestines, her bladder, her kidneys, and it was a very complicated surgery. So caregiving for my wife during that time as well. And then fast forward to uh, December of 2023, my wife found this lump on her breast, tells her doctor about it. Doctor's like, hey, probably need to go get it checked out. She gets it checked out, gets a biopsy done. Results come back January 3rd of 2024. Results come back saying, hey, it's stage 2 breast cancer. And when you hear the word cancer, your world is pretty much turned upside down.
Mhm.
And so for us, we went into basically like learning mode. We read books about cancer, nutrition about cancer. We read a specific book called Chris Beat Cancer. And if you don't know who Chris Work is, he was like this 25, 26-year-old guy, has had severe abdominal pain, checks into the ER, gets MRI done or whatever, X-rays, things like that. Doctor comes back saying, hey, you have stage 3 colon cancer and you have maybe 6 to 8 months to live. And you might have a year if you do surgery, chemo, radiation. And he actually just opted out of doing the chemo and radiation. He just did the surgery part. And then he completely changed his diet to a whole food plant-based diet and then reversed his cancer. And so we read this, we completely shifted our food to a whole food plant-based diet. But at the same time, I'm also reading a book called The Breast Cancer Husband. And the breast cancer husband basically says, hey, be there for your wife through this time as she's going through cancer. And as I'm finishing the book says, hey, let your employer know to, let them know what's going on with your wife
Mhm.
and to have a flexible work schedule. And they said 99% of the time, most employers will agree to that. And so I was reluctant to tell my employer, but I was like, all right, hey, the book said to do this. I'm going to go do it. So February 1st of 2024, I talked to my three managers at the time. And I was like, yeah, I'll work weekends. I'll do, work nights, whatever, just to make up my time and so I can get my work done. And they're like, yeah, yeah, that's fine. That's, we could work around that. Then exactly a week after that happened, they decided to lay me off. Uh,
Wow.
and at this point, my wife has already quit her job as she's going to be going through, cancer treatments, things like that. So how did I navigate that of not being broken or breaking down when life is basically beating me up? Uh, so for me and my wife, faith is a big part of our lives. So when I heard the news that I got laid off, I told my wife, I I came home that night, we prayed, but we didn't ask the question, why is this happening? We didn't ask God, like, why is this happening? Why does my wife get cancer? Why does I lose my job all within a short time period? So we reframed it to asking, why not us, and who can we help? And so for in that mindset, that mind frame for me was, all right, yeah, this is terrible in the moment, but I want to see how I could help someone else out there that might be dealing with maybe cancer or job loss or some sort of life challenge or circumstance. So for me, that helped me not to basically break because I could easily been in that mind frame of, oh, well, yeah, the world is against us and well, be the victim. But we
Mhm.
took it upon ourselves to take that challenge to learn from other people and take action for our life. So that helped me and my wife to not break.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm curious, though, thank you for that great story. Was that your mindset and mantra prior to having the bad news?
I mean, for me, just reading the books, a lot of the books said, just be committed to your wife and
Mhm.
having that mindset. It just honestly, it just kind of came to me as I was
Hmm.
praying that
Okay.
evening, because I didn't want to have in my mind of, asking that why is this happening, like, and blaming God or blaming the circumstance or whatever, but really owning that cancer journey, owning that job loss.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
think it kind of happened as I was praying in that moment. I don't think it was a mindset that I had before,
Mhm.
Okay.
because
Okay.
Mhm.
the cancer diagnosis, it kind of came out of nowhere, and then the job loss came out of nowhere. Uh,
Mhm.
I mean, for me, I pretty much laughed that night because I almost felt like it was like a sitcom or something like that. I'm like in some sort of movie or something like that, that it just didn't seem real. But I was like, all right, I just got to lean on faith. I got to do my part. And I think that's where the shift in my mindset came from, was just right then in the moment.
But there was a blessing in all of that, right? Because being negative about it and feeling down and out doesn't help with healing. Healing happens
Yeah,
in a positive environment.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that was truly a blessing.
So
Yeah, I guess
then,
so.
but then, DK, is what you're describing then when it happened, not saying why me, why us, but trying to figure out how you might be of service or a blessing to others. Is that then what you describe as the gratitude in the fire? And what does that look like when you're actually in the middle of suffering?
Yeah, so I think for me, gratitude is a universal language.
Hmm.
All of us have known what it is since we're little, childhood, just a simple thank you for something. But I think for me, gratitude in the fire is something where having gratitude doesn't fix or solve your problem, but having small moments of gratitude. Like for me, giving an example was there'll be days my wife had rough days after chemo treatments, and
Hmm.
just having gratitude of like simple things of holding your hand, or my wife smiled that day, or my wife had energy to go for a walk outside.
Hmm.
Just like simple things like
Hmm.
that. But
Right.
we also practice every evening, just like, hey, what are three things that we're grateful for today? And it could be, hey, I was able to wake up today because, honestly, when you hear the word cancer, you don't know if your time is up tomorrow. And so my wife had treatment for an entire year,
Hmm.
from February 2024 to February 2025. So as of February 2025, my wife is cancer free,
Oh, wonderful.
but it
Yeah.
was still a long journey. And
Yeah.
then with the chemo treatments that went with it, she ended up having cataracts. So she got both her eyes done, cataract surgery in June of 2025. But then fast forward to like right now, she's facing nerve damage from the chemo treatment. And so,
Hmm.
we're just having that practice, that gratitude of like, okay, we have another day, or the breath in our lungs that, we take, for granted of just breathing. We go for a
Right.
minute when we can't breathe, we start shutting down.
Hmm.
So I think just gratitude in the fire, just having gratitude moments of like those simple things in life. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what it meant for us.
Yeah. But you mentioned the unexpected response from your job because the book said to share with your employer and you expected some support. That wasn't the response. During that period, when you and your wife were going through this, where did your greatest source of support in term come from? Not so much, I'm not asking so much about your faith, certainly that's part of it, but I'm talking about um, in actual people, physical presence, people supporting. Where did that come from for you? Or did you experience that?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, I'm a big part of church as well. We're part of a small group.
Mm-hmm.
They came by for support. They're like, "Hey, we understand. We heard that you lost your job. Here's it was in like an anonymous donation of like gift cards and saying
Mm-hmm.
get gift cards for to buy some groceries. They pitched in and paid for rent for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so community was for us was like small group,
Right.
was our church, even at the hospital too. The hospital was really great. They had like support groups at the hospital uh, for either the caregiver or for the person that has cancer. And they had like Zoom meetings, but they also had in-person meetings, just
Mm-hmm.
for support on like emotional
Right.
support on, like, hey, how are you doing? Like, I understand that it's very stressful and it can be a lot of anxiety that comes with it with cancer. And yeah, so I leaned on just different communities just that were
Mm-hmm.
around me.
Well, that's very helpful because when you get a diagnosis like that, it's not only impacting the people directly who are impacted by the diagnosis, but friends and family who love you and care for you, they feel paralyzed because you're trying to figure out what can you do to support, but you don't want to do the wrong thing, you
Yeah.
know? And many people walk on eggshells trying to figure out how they can help. So that's helpful in
Yeah.
terms of what brought value to you and your wife during
Yeah.
this time. Yeah.
And another community that we were a part of was the crispy cancer community.
Hmm.
Because it's people that's walked through this cancer journey, and
Hmm.
they're 5, 6 steps ahead of where we are at. And we ask those questions to this group, and we're like, hey, like, what do we need to do, or what's the next step? And because it's basically like having like-minded people in that
Hmm.
group
Hmm.
who's been there, walked it, and
Yeah.
understand.
Right.
And so that was something that we had to lean on. We asked who, not how, like who's been through cancer and what did
Hmm.
they do, instead of like, all right, how do we navigate this and
Right.
what are we going to do by ourselves? Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, again, I'm just seeing such blessings through all of this because one thing you mentioned is about having that community even prior to the diagnosis. So you already had a community. And many people nowadays, we know that based on the reports, many people are lonely these days, right? So there's a lesson in that, and there's blessing in that as well, because you guys had a community that you could lean on, people there to support you. And it sounds like you were able to even get introduced to even specific communities like that had experienced cancer, those
Mhm.
that had experienced cancer. Ooh, I'm getting chills talking about this. This is really good stuff. So tell me, DK, what did you what did you learn? What did this whole diagnosis reveal to you about love, leadership, and emotional endurance as a husband?
Yeah, you know, you don't know how strong you are until you're kind of thrown into that circumstance or that pit, you know?
Hmm.
And for me, I never would have thought of like what it takes to be a caregiver. And so for me, I kind of learned more about myself is really to have more compassion for people because at the end of the day, you don't really know what people are going through. So many
Hmm.
people put, a face up and say, "Oh, everything is fine, everything is great," but you don't know what's going on like inside wise. And I think just having compassion for people of like, hey, everybody's going through something, whether it be a health crisis, financial crisis, job loss,
Hmm.
cancer, whatever it is, every single person is going through something. And for me, it's like how I can relate to other people now, just because I understand, I know what it's like to be in that position. And yeah, so I just learned that it takes compassion to be a great leader, to be a great
Hmm.
husband, uh,
Hmm.
and intentions. Like you gotta have intention. For me, my intention was I'm gonna be there for my wife no matter what, whether if I have a job or not. And I think, being a great leader, a great husband, we have to have that intention.
Hmm.
Give you an example. So as my wife was going through, her treatments, I saw the medical staff pretty much 2, 3 times a week, right?
Hmm.
And the medical staff actually pulled me aside after, 3 months of treatment because I saw them pretty much a lot, right? They pulled me aside and they just said, "Hey, we are really just inspired by you for sticking by your wife." And they told me the statistics of when a wife is going through cancer, they said 70 to 80% of men basically check out or they file for divorce as soon as their wife is going through
Wow.
cancer.
The percentage is that high.
That high, yeah. And
Wow.
I was blown away. I was shocked. I was like 70, 80%.
Right,
Because
right. I'm shocked.
so the nursing staff, they see basically cancer patients day in, day out, 5, 6 days a week, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day. So they understand the numbers. They're like, yeah, we saw, 10 patients today. Yeah, only 2 or 3 husbands showed up and they're talking with the patients, and the patient is like, yeah, my husband filed for divorce a month after I got diagnosed with cancer.
Wow.
So they hear all these things from their patients, and they told me that. And I was just kind of like, wow, like I'm blown away. But I think just having that intention of
Hmm. Hmm.
being a great leader, being a great husband, and really be there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, DK, you wrote Mindset Metamorphosis during one of the hardest seasons of your life. So, what core transformation do you hope readers walk away with?
Yeah, so I wrote my book, Mindset Metamorphosis, during my wife's cancer treatments and when I had
Hmm.
a job. And it honestly, it was a book for me because I was that person who felt overwhelmed, overstressed, and just feeling just like stuck in life because these were things I couldn't control. I couldn't control the cancer diagnosis. I couldn't control the job loss.
Hmm.
But for me, I was just journaling one day. It goes back to that question of who can we help with this journey?
Hmm.
And it transformed into a how-to guide to get unstuck. It's a how-to guide to basically not feel overstressed. And for me, my main takeaway for people is to really have internal transformation and for that person to start taking some action for their life. I talk about just some practicals. Like I say, adding meditation to help de-stress, doing some breath work, going on walks, getting some sunlight, drinking more water. These are some practicals that I talk about in my book that really help me take action. So I'm not basically sitting in my sorrows of, oh, well, woe is us. Life is terrible. It's like, no, I actually had to go de-stress. I had to go for walks. I had to help my wife go for walks as well to add movement, get some sunlight. Sun is very good for us.
Hmm.
You get vitamin D from it and things like that. So yeah, I think it's more just taking action for your life and being responsible for your life and not being a victim and
Hmm.
taking, small action, whatever it is, a small
Hmm.
step.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Kimchi, more than a food, really? It's a mindset? Can you explain what that means
Yeah,
and how
yeah.
it helps people heal?
Yeah, so I actually wrote another book called The Kimchi Connection Cookbook.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
this was actually during my wife's cancer chemo as well. And it's basically integrating kimchi into different foods. And with kimchi, there's a lot of health benefits that goes with it. With fermented foods, you get probiotics, you help seal the leaky gut. And so what the kimchi mindset for me was, sometimes like looking at parallels, sometimes in life, you there's pressure on you, right? Whether it be a job, whether it be life circumstance or whatever. And these things don't happen overnight. And so same thing with kimchi. When you make kimchi, you have to cut it, you have to salt it, season it, then you jar it, and then it starts pressurizing, building bubbles, and it's taking ordinary cabbage and making it into something healthy and super powerful. But it's the same with life. Sometimes maybe this life circumstance, this life challenge, or this life pressure is creating something powerful in our character that we're going to be using later in life that might
I
build
love that. Yeah.
for something bigger and better. But without this circumstance that we're going through, we're not going to be able to handle that bigger challenge or
Hmm.
bigger pressure that we're going to face later in life. So for me,
Hmm.
it was the parallel of maybe I'm fermenting in this moment to become something powerful, to become something better, or to help someone else out there that I may not even know through my book or through a podcast.
Love that.
Well, yeah, so do I. Matter of fact, I think I wrote last week's blog about that and something about that. And what I shared was that now when struggles come or challenges come in my own life, I try to first think about what lesson is there in this for me? What is happening so that I can grow into the person that I need to be? And I try to look at this as hard as it is when you're in the fire. I try to remember that this is a time of refinement of Lou and that I certainly believe that work is happening and I'm being developed. I didn't always think that way because many times in the past I would immediately react to something. But DK, I like what you said about when your wife got the diagnosis and you lost your job. You remembered or you thought about with a job or without a job. You set your intention was that you were going to support your wife.
Yeah.
And so once you do that, it becomes very clear, what has to align with that intention. So that's I appreciate you sharing that. Those are all of the questions that we have for you today. Thank you for coming on Earrings Off. Do you have any parting words for our audience or something you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, all of us as humans are going through something. Don't lose hope, don't give up, but take one step forward, even if it's a small baby step, it's still moving in that direction. And you're not alone. Whatever you're going through, it doesn't matter. Find that community, find that help, because there are other people out there that are going through so much more than you are. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can go to my website, dkkang.com. And then if you sign up for my newsletter, I'm actually giving away the first chapter of my mindset book away as a free
Okay.
download for people to start transforming their life and start taking some action. I am on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn. I don't know what my handle is. I just go there to post. But if you really want to contact me, it's through email. It's dk@dkkang.com. I usually respond pretty quick with emails. Um, yeah, and that's me. So,
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on Earrings Off. Certainly, you shared a lot of information. We appreciate you sharing your story, not only of the challenges, but of the victory. So, our very best to you. Take good care.
thank you so much.